For hundreds of years, stories of a forgotten Filipino empire called Maharlika have been heard in myths, legends, and even political talks. Some people say it was just a made-up story. Others believe it was a strong kingdom that was erased from history. But, what if the truth is somewhere in the middle? For as long as Filipinos can remember, the story of Maharlika has been somewhere between a made-up tale and real life. If you mention it in a conversation, you'll probably get two very different reactions. Some will roll their eyes and say, "That's just a legend." Others, with passion in their voice, will insist, "Maharlika was real, and it was amazing." So what is Maharlika? Was it a real old kingdom that did well in the Philippine Islands? Or is it a beautiful story that still makes people proud and causes arguments today? To answer this, we need to look closely at history, language, politics, and old things found in the ground. The word Maharlika is not random. Before the Spanish came to the Philippines, it meant a group of people. Free fighters, noble men and women who were not slaves or alipin, and not royalty, or datu. They were respected fighters and landowners, who were very important in Filipino society. When the Spanish arrived, they wrote down these groups of people, including the Maharlika, in their papers. But here's where things get interesting. Over time, the word became more than just a name for a group of fighters. It became connected to the idea of a bigger, amazing kingdom. A united empire that once covered the Philippine Islands, and maybe even more. Some Filipino historians and people who love their country say that Maharlika was not just a group of people, but the name of a powerful kingdom. According to these ideas, it existed hundreds of years before the Spanish came, and might have been rich in gold, trade, and culture. People who support this idea point to old Chinese and Arab writings that talked about islands in Southeast Asia that were rich in resources, ruled by noble leaders, and connected to international trade routes. Could one of those mentions have been about a kingdom called Maharlika? People who doubt this say there is no clear proof, no writings on stone, no ruins of a royal palace, no old map calling the land Maharlika. But not having proof doesn't always mean it didn't exist. Much of Philippine history before the Spanish came was passed down by telling stories, not by writing things down. Here's something many people don't think about. When the Spanish took over the Philippines, they didn't just bring religion and guns. They also actively got rid of old culture from before they arrived. Local papers written in Baybayin script were burned. Local long poems and stories told by mouth were stopped. Why? Because for them to take over successfully, the Spanish needed Filipinos to forget they once had advanced societies, their own ways of ruling, and yes, possibly even kingdoms like Maharlika. Could the idea of Maharlika have been hidden on purpose? That's the question that causes so many arguments today. One of the strongest clues is in Filipino gold. People who study old things have found amazing gold items, masks, jewelry, special objects used in ceremonies, from hundreds of years before the Spanish arrived. The most famous is the golden tara found in Mindanao, thought to be from around the 9th or 10th century. Other treasures found in Luzon and Visayas show that Filipinos were not only good at working with gold, but also part of international trade. Some historians argue, if the Philippines had this much gold, there must have been powerful kingdoms managing that wealth. Could Maharlika have been one of them? The mystery of Maharlika didn't end when the Spanish left. In fact, it became even more talked about in modern Philippine politics. During the time of Ferdinand Marcos, the word Maharlika became a symbol. Ferdinand Marcos supposedly wanted to change the name of the entire Philippines to Maharlika, to make the country different from its Spanish colonial name. People who supported this idea said that Maharlika meant nobility, bravery, and greatness from before the Spanish came. Critics, however, said Marcos used it as advertising, an attempt to make up a mythical past to make his own rule look good. This only made things more confusing. Was Maharlika real history, or was it being changed for political power? Alright, let's look at the proof. Studying old things has shown many signs of old Filipino societies. Gold items, burial places, tools, trade goods, and even signs of talking with other kingdoms like China's Ming dynasty. But, there has never been a direct item or writing that clearly proves there was a main kingdom called Maharlika. To many smart people, this suggests Maharlika as a kingdom might be more of a story than a fact. Still, stories passed down by mouth and scattered foreign records suggest there were large groups of people with power in the islands before Spain. For example, the Kingdom of Tondo near modern-day Manila, the Rajanate of Cebu, and the Sultanate of Sulu were all strong powers. So could Maharlika have been another one, simply lost because of the Spanish taking over? Even if the exact details of Maharlika are still argued about, the story itself is very important. Why? Because it reminds Filipinos of something the colonial powers wanted them to forget, that they were not wild tribes waiting to be saved. They were fighters, traders, kings, and queens with a long history. Whether Maharlika was a real kingdom or, just a symbol of nobility, it continues to make people proud of their country. It also makes new generations want to question history, ask for more research, and protect the pieces of their heritage that are left. Here's the exciting part. The Philippines is still full of old places that haven't been explored. New digs keep finding items that change what we thought we knew. It's totally possible that one day, something will be found. A writing, a ruin, a royal tomb, that finally proves Maharlika existed. Until then, the story of Maharlika will stay part history, part mystery, and part story. So was Maharlika real? Maybe not in the way some people imagine it, as a huge empire. But as a symbol of Filipino nobility, bravery, and forgotten history, Maharlika is very real. It lives in memory, in language, in pride, and in the gold that still shines from the earth. And maybe, just maybe that's the point, Maharlika doesn't need to be carved into stone for it to live on. It lives in the Filipino spirit.